What happens when royalty forgets they're just a guest on someone else's show? When privilege collides with reality on live television and the cameras capture every single second of an epic meltdown? It only took 35 seconds for one guest to go from smiling for the cameras to being escorted off the stage in what became the most shocking moment in talk show history. But before we get into this absolute chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. And stick around to the end to comment on your thoughts about this outrageous behavior because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. So let me take you back to that night. The Graham Norton Show, one of the biggest talk shows on television. The studio audience is packed, the lights are bright, and everyone is excited. Graham Norton, the beloved host who's known for making everyone feel comfortable and having the best conversations with celebrities, is sitting in his iconic red chair. He's relaxed, he's funny, and he's ready for another great show. The guest walking out is Meghan Markle. The audience claps as she comes onto the stage wearing a designer dress that probably costs more than most people make in a year. She's waving, she's smiling that perfect smile, and she sits down on the couch next to Graham. Everything seems fine. Everything seems normal, but you can already feel something in the air. Something's not quite right. Graham starts the interview the way he always does, warm and welcoming. "So lovely to have you here tonight. How are you doing?" he asks with that genuine smile he's famous for. Meghan looks at him, and there's this pause. Just a tiny pause, but it's enough to notice. "I'm doing well, Graham. Thank you for having me," she says, but her voice has this edge to it, like she's doing him a favor by being there. Graham, being the professional he is, doesn't skip a beat. "We're thrilled you're here. Now, I have to ask, you've been in the public eye for quite some time now. How do you handle all the attention?" And this is where things start to shift. Meghan sits up a little straighter, and her whole face changes. "You know what, Graham? I think that's actually a very insensitive question to ask someone who has been through what I've been through." The audience goes quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Graham's eyebrows go up just a little bit, but he keeps his cool. "I apologize if that came across wrong. I was just curious about your experience." But Meghan isn't having it. "Curious?" she repeats, and there's this tone in her voice now. Sharp, cold. "Is that what we're calling invasive questions now? Curiosity?" Graham shifts in his seat, still trying to keep things light. "Well, I think our audience would love to hear your perspective. That's what we do here. We have conversations." "Conversations," Meghan says, almost laughing, but not in a nice way. "Graham, let me tell you something about conversations. Real conversations happen between equals. Do you understand what I'm saying?" The camera cuts to the audience, and people are looking at each other with these shocked expressions. Graham clears his throat. "I'm not sure I follow. We're just chatting like I do with all my guests." "All your guests," Meghan says, crossing her arms. "And how many of your guests have dealt with the kind of scrutiny I've faced? How many of them have had their entire lives picked apart by the media?" Graham, still being kind and patient, says, "Many of my guests have actually faced tremendous public pressure. It's something we talk about quite often on this show." But Meghan waves her hand like she's brushing away his words. "Please, Graham, don't compare my situation to some actor who got a bad review. What I've been through is on a completely different level, and frankly, I don't think you're qualified to speak on it." Now the tension in the room is thick. You can see Graham's jaw tighten just a little, but he's still trying to be the good host. "I'm not trying to compare anyone's experiences. Everyone's journey is unique." "Exactly," Meghan jumps in. "So maybe you should show some respect and recognize that." Graham takes a breath. "I absolutely respect you. That's why you're here on my show." "Your show," Meghan repeats, and now she's really getting worked up. "You keep saying that. Your show, your questions, your audience. Has it occurred to you that maybe, just maybe, people tuned in tonight to see me, not you?" The audience gasps. Actually gasps. Graham's face shows surprise for just a second before he composes himself. "Well, I think people tuned in to see both of us have a nice conversation." "A nice conversation," Meghan says mockingly. "Is that what this is? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like an interrogation. I've asked you 2 questions," Graham points out calmly. "Both fairly standard for any interview." Meghan leans forward now, pointing her finger. "Don't you dare try to make me feel like I'm being difficult. I came here as a courtesy to you, Graham. Do you understand that? A courtesy." Graham nods slowly. And I appreciate you coming on the show, but I think maybe we should take a breath and start over. Start over? Meghan's voice goes up. Why should I have to start over? Why don't you start over and learn how to properly interview someone of my status? There it is. That word. Status. The whole audience heard it. Graham heard it. Everyone watching at home heard it. Graham stays calm. Incredibly calm considering what's happening. I've been doing this for many years, and I've interviewed everyone from Academy Award winners to world leaders. I treat every guest with the same respect. The same respect? Meghan stands up now, actually stands up from the couch. That's the problem right there, Graham. I shouldn't be treated the same as everyone else. I'm not everyone else. The audience is completely silent. Some people have their hands over their mouths. Graham stands up too, trying to keep things under control. Please, let's sit down and continue this conversation. No, Meghan says firmly. I don't think you understand who you're speaking to. I have been on the cover of every major magazine. I have influence that you could only dream of. And yet you sit there with your little note cards and your scripted questions, thinking you can treat me like some nobody who's grateful to be here. Graham's expression changes slightly. He's still professional, still composed, but you can see he's had enough. I think there might be a misunderstanding here. There's no misunderstanding. Meghan cuts him off. The misunderstanding is that you thought you could have me on this show and control the narrative. Well, guess what? I control my own narrative now. Not you, not the media, not anyone. This is my show, Graham says, and his voice is firmer now. And in my show, we have respectful conversations. I've been nothing but polite to you. Meghan laughs, but it's not a real laugh. It's harsh. Polite? You want credit for being polite? That's the bare minimum, Graham. I deserve more than the bare minimum. What exactly do you want? Graham asks. And you can hear the frustration creeping into his voice now. I want you to recognize that having me here is a privilege for you, Meghan says loudly. I could be anywhere right now. I could be at home. I could be at a charity event that actually matters. But I chose to come here, and this is how you treat me? Graham spreads his hands. I welcomed you onto my show. I asked you normal questions. I don't understand what I've done wrong. That's exactly the problem. Meghan shouts now, actually shouts. You don't understand. You have no idea what it's like to be me. To have the weight of the world watching your every move, judging everything you do and say. Then help me understand, Graham says, still trying to salvage this. That's what we're here for. To talk, to share, to connect with the audience. The audience? Meghan turns to look at the crowd. Do all of you know what it's like to have your privacy invaded every single day? To have lies written about you in the papers? No? Then none of you can judge me either. Someone in the audience coughs. It's that awkward kind of cough when nobody knows what else to do. Graham tries again. Nobody here is judging you. We're all just hoping to hear your story. My story? Meghan whips back around to face him. My story is mine to tell when I want to tell it. How I want to tell it. Not because you scheduled me into your little time slot. You agreed to come on the show, Graham reminds her gently. I agreed before I realized what kind of environment this was going to be. Meghan snaps back. This hostile, uncomfortable environment where I'm expected to perform for people. Graham's patience is clearly wearing thin, but he's still trying. I don't think asking about your life is hostile. These are questions I ask everyone. Stop saying that. Meghan's voice echoes through the studio. Stop saying you treat me like everyone else. I am not like everyone else. When will you get that through your head? The camera shows a producer in the background, looking panicked, talking into a headset. Graham takes a deep breath. I think maybe we need to take a commercial break. Of course you do, Meghan says with a bitter smile. Run away when things get difficult. That's very typical. I'm not running away, Graham says, and now his voice has some real steel in it. I'm trying to give us both a moment to reset this conversation. I don't need to reset anything, Meghan insists. I'm perfectly clear about what's happening here. You invited me on your show to make yourself look good, to boost your ratings, and now you're upset because I'm not playing along with your little game. That is absolutely not what's happening, Graham says firmly. I invited you because I thought my audience would enjoy hearing from you. But if you're going to continue being disrespectful to me and to them, then perhaps this wasn't a good idea. Meghan's eyes go wide. Disrespectful? I'm being disrespectful? That's rich coming from someone who's been condescending to me from the moment I sat down. I have not been condescending, Graham states clearly. I have been professional and courteous. Your version of professional is my version of insulting, Meghan fires back. Graham looks directly at her. Then I apologize if you felt insulted, but I genuinely don't know what I said that was insulting. That's because you're not listening. Meghan throws her hands up. You're so busy thinking about your next question, your next joke, your next moment, that you're not actually hearing what I'm saying. What are you saying? Graham asks. Because honestly, right now all I'm hearing is that you're angry, but I don't know why. I'm angry because I'm tired. Meghan's voice cracks a little. I'm tired of being treated like a product, like a thing to be consumed and discussed and analyzed. I'm a human being. I know you're a human being, Graham says more softly. I've never suggested otherwise. But you expect me to sit here and answer your questions like a trained seal doing tricks? Meghan continues. Smile for the camera, Meghan. Be charming, Meghan. Tell us something personal, Meghan. Well, I'm done doing that. Graham nods slowly. Okay, I hear that. But you did agree to do an interview, which generally involves answering questions. On my terms, Meghan says. But this is my show, Graham reminds her again. So the terms were set when you agreed to come on. Meghan stares at him for a long moment. You know what? You're right. This is your show. And I don't need to be here for another second. She starts to walk off the stage. Graham calls after her. Wait, we're still recording. I don't care, Meghan says without turning around. I'm done. We have 7 more minutes of the segment, Graham says, looking confused and frustrated. Meghan stops and turns back. Then fill it with one of your other guests. I'm sure they'll be perfectly happy to dance for you like good little puppets. That's uncalled for, Graham says, and now he sounds genuinely hurt. I have never treated any guest like a puppet. Haven't you, though? Meghan challenges. Isn't that what this whole format is? You pull the strings, ask the questions you want, steer the conversation where you want it to go, and we're all just supposed to smile and nod and be grateful? That's not fair, Graham says. This is a conversation. A two-way conversation. A conversation where you hold all the power, Meghan points out. The power? Graham looks baffled. What power? You're free to answer however you want. You're free to change the subject. You're free to tell me if a question makes you uncomfortable. Am I, though? Meghan asks. Because every time I try to assert myself, you tell me I'm being difficult. I never said you were being difficult. Graham corrects her. You didn't have to say it, Meghan responds. It's written all over your face. You think I'm being a diva. You think I'm being unreasonable. I can see it. Graham shakes his head. What I think is that we got off on the wrong foot somehow, and I wish I knew how to fix it. You can't fix it, Meghan says flatly, because the whole premise is broken. You can't have a real conversation when there's an inherent power imbalance. Every interview has a host and a guest, Graham says. That doesn't mean there's a power imbalance. Of course it does. Meghan's getting loud again. You decide what questions to ask. You decide when to go to commercial. You decide what makes it into the final edit. How is that not a power imbalance? Because you have the power to say no, Graham tells her. You have the power to decline questions, to share what you want to share, to be yourself. Except when I do that, I get criticized, Meghan says. When I set boundaries, I'm difficult. When I speak my truth, I'm problematic. There's no winning. Graham looks tired now. I'm not trying to make you lose. I'm really not. Then what are you trying to do? Meghan demands. Have a conversation, Graham says, his voice rising slightly. Just a normal conversation where we talk about your life, your work, things that matter to you. That's it. That's all I've ever wanted from this interview. Well, maybe I don't want to talk about those things with you, Meghan says coldly. Then why did you come on the show? Graham asks. And it's a genuine question. Meghan doesn't answer right away. She just stares at him. Why did you agree to be here if you didn't want to talk? Graham presses. I thought it would be different, Meghan finally says quietly. Different how? Graham asks. I thought you would understand, she says. Understand what? Graham's voice is gentler now. What it's like, Meghan says vaguely. The pressure, the expectations, the constant feeling that you're being judged no matter what you do. Graham nods. I do understand that, actually. I've been in the public eye for decades. I know what it's like to be criticized, to have people pick apart everything you say and do. It's not the same, Meghan insists. Maybe not exactly the same, Graham concedes. But I do understand difficulty and scrutiny. But you're part of the problem, Meghan says suddenly. You and shows like this. You invite people on, you ask them invasive questions, you edit their words to create drama, and then you act surprised when they get upset. I don't edit anything to create drama, Graham says firmly. This show is broadcast live. What you say is what goes out. Meghan blinks. It's live? Yes, Graham says. It's always been live. That's one of the things the show is known for. You can see Meghan's face change as she realizes what that means. Everything she said, every outburst, every accusation, It's all gone out to millions of viewers in real time. I didn't realize, she stammers. We mentioned it several times in the pre-show meetings, Graham says quietly. Meghan's hands are shaking a little now. I need to leave. Perhaps that's best, Graham agrees. And he doesn't sound angry anymore. He sounds sad. Meghan starts walking off stage again, faster this time. Graham turns to the camera. Well, that was certainly unexpected. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have our other guests. But Meghan stops at the edge of the stage. She turns back one more time. You know what the worst part is, Graham? Graham looks at her, waiting. The worst part is that you probably think you did nothing wrong, Meghan says. You'll go home tonight thinking you were perfectly professional, perfectly kind, and that I was just crazy or difficult or whatever word you want to use. And that's what makes this whole system so insidious. You don't even see it. I see someone who's clearly going through something difficult, Graham says gently, and I'm sorry that being here made it worse. Don't apologize, Meghan says. It's too late for that. It's never too late for an apology, Graham replies. Yes, it is, Meghan says. Because an apology from you doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the system. It doesn't change how people like me are treated. It's just words. Sometimes words matter, Graham offers. Not these words, Meghan says. Not from you. And with that, she walks off stage completely. You can hear her heels clicking on the floor as she goes. The studio is silent except for that sound. Click, 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 getting farther away until a door slams somewhere backstage. Graham stands there for a moment, looking genuinely shaken. He runs a hand through his hair and lets out a long breath. Then he looks directly at the camera with this expression that's part confusion, part hurt, part disbelief. I truly don't know what just happened, he says honestly. I've been doing this job for a very long time, and I've never had an interview go quite like that. Someone in the audience starts clapping slowly, and then more people join in. They're applauding Graham, showing their support for him. He holds up a hand to quiet them. No, please don't, he says. This isn't about taking sides. Something clearly went wrong here, and I wish I knew what it was. A producer comes out on stage and whispers something in Graham's ear. He nods and thanks them, and the producer hurries back off. Graham addresses the audience and the camera again. We're being told that our guest has left the building, so we're going to move on with the rest of the show. But I want to say something first, if I may. The audience quiets down completely. I never want any guest on this show to feel uncomfortable or disrespected, Graham says, and his voice is sincere. That's the last thing I would ever want. If something I said or did made our guest feel that way, then I genuinely apologize. However, I also have to be honest. I've watched back the beginning of this interview in my mind, and I can't figure out what I did wrong. I asked standard questions. I tried to be welcoming. I attempted to have a conversation. He pauses, collecting his thoughts. But clearly something was wrong, he continues. Maybe it wasn't about me at all. Maybe our guest was having a difficult day, or dealing with things I don't know about, or just wasn't in the right headspace for this. Whatever it was, I hope she's okay. I really do. The audience applauds again, and this time Graham lets them. Thank you, he says. Thank you for your understanding. Now, let's try to have a good rest of the show, shall we? We have some wonderful other guests waiting to come out, and I promise you, we're going to have some fun. He sits back down in his chair, and you can see him take a moment to compose himself before the next segment begins. He picks up his cup of tea, takes a sip, and sets it back down. Then he looks at the camera with that familiar Graham Norton smile, but this time, there's something different behind it. Something sad. Something that says he's been hurt by what just happened, even if he's trying not to show it. The band starts playing to signal the return from commercial break, and Graham launches into his introduction of the next guest with all the charm and energy he's known for. But anyone watching closely can see that something's changed. There's a guardedness there now that wasn't there before. And that's what makes this whole situation so heartbreaking. Graham Norton, who has built his entire career on making guests feel comfortable, on creating a space where celebrities can relax and be themselves, has just been attacked for doing exactly what he always does. He was kind, he was curious, he was respectful, and yet somehow that wasn't enough. The other guests come out one by one, and they're all a bit more subdued than usual. You can tell they know what happened. They probably saw it on monitors backstage or heard the commotion, but they're professionals, and they do their best to give Graham and the audience a good show. Graham rallies too. He makes jokes. He tells stories. He asks interesting questions, but every now and then, you catch him with this distant look in his eyes, like he's still trying to figure out what went wrong with that first interview, because that's who Graham Norton is. He's not someone who shrugs off conflict or pretends everything is fine when it's not. He's someone who cares deeply about his guests, his show, and his audience. And what happened tonight genuinely affected him. The show continues, and eventually, it ends the way it always does, with Graham thanking everyone for watching and the credits rolling over footage of him chatting with his guests during the commercial breaks. But this time, there's no footage of the first guest. That segment, that disaster of an interview, stands alone, a moment of television that everyone watching will remember, but for all the wrong reasons. And the question that everyone is left asking is the same question Graham asked. What just happened? How did a simple interview, a standard talk show appearance, spiral so completely out of control? How did polite questions become accusations of disrespect? How did professional courtesy become evidence of condescension? The answer perhaps lies in something Meghan herself said during the interview. She talked about feeling judged, about being tired, about the constant pressure of public scrutiny. And those are all valid feelings. Being in the public eye is difficult. Being famous comes with challenges that most people can't imagine. But here's the thing, and this is important. Graham Norton didn't create those problems. He's not responsible for the media's treatment of anyone. He's not in control of public opinion or tabloid headlines. He's just a talk show host trying to do his job. And his job is to have conversations with interesting people. That's it. That's all he was trying to do. Did he deserve to be yelled at? Did he deserve to be accused of being condescending when he was being nothing but polite? Did he deserve to have someone walk off his show after barely 10 minutes? The audience didn't think so. The other guests didn't think so. And honestly, watching this back, it's hard to see how anyone could think so. Graham Norton is one of the most beloved hosts in television for a reason. He's warm. He's funny. He's genuinely interested in people. He makes his guests laugh. He makes them feel comfortable. He creates moments of real connection that viewers love to watch. But you can't create connection with someone who refuses to connect. You can't have a conversation with someone who sees every question as an attack. You can't make someone comfortable who's determined to be uncomfortable. And that's what makes this whole situation so frustrating. Not because Meghan was having a bad day or dealing with difficult emotions. Everyone has those. But because she took those feelings out on someone who didn't deserve it. Someone who was just trying to do his job well. Graham could have fought back. He could have gotten angry. He could have told her to leave the first time she got rude. But he didn't. He stayed calm. He tried to understand. He attempted to fix the situation multiple times. He was, in every sense of the word, a gentleman. And that's why the audience clapped for him. Not because they were against his guest, but because they recognized grace under pressure. They saw someone handling an impossible situation with dignity and kindness. That's the real story here. Not the outburst, not the accusations, not the dramatic exit. The real story is how Graham Norton remained himself, even when someone was trying to make him into a villain. He refused to sink to that level. He refused to be anything other than who he is, a good person trying to do good work. So yes, Meghan Markle walked off the Graham Norton show. Yes, she made accusations and threw around insults. Yes, she turned what should have been a pleasant interview into an uncomfortable spectacle. But she didn't break Graham Norton. She didn't make him cruel or petty or vindictive. She didn't turn him into the villain she seemed to want him to be. He remained kind. He remained professional. He remained Graham. And at the end of the day, that's what people will remember. Not the chaos of those few minutes, but the quiet dignity of a man who refused to respond to hostility with more hostility. The cameras eventually stopped rolling. The audience went home. The studio went dark. But somewhere, Graham Norton was probably still wondering what he could have done differently, because that's the kind of person he is, even when he did nothing wrong. Even when he handled an impossible situation as well as anyone could, he was probably still questioning himself. That's the burden of being someone who truly cares. You take responsibility even when you shouldn't have to. You wonder if you could have been better even when you were already doing your best. But here's what Graham Norton needs to know, and what everyone watching needs to know too. He didn't fail. He didn't do anything wrong. He was put in an impossible position by someone who came onto his show spoiling for a fight, and he handled it with more grace than most people would have managed. That's not just good hosting. That's good character. And no amount of yelling or accusations or dramatic exits can change that truth. So, when you think about what happened on the Graham Norton show that night, remember this. One person forgot that being a guest means showing respect to your host. One person forgot that agreeing to an interview means being willing to answer questions. One person forgot that having a platform comes with responsibilities, but one person never forgot who he was or what he stood for. One person remained kind in the face of cruelty, patient in the face of aggression, and professional in the face of chaos. That person was Graham Norton, and that's why, despite everything that happened, he's still one of the most respected and beloved hosts on television. Because true character isn't about how you act when everything is going well. It's about how you act when everything is falling apart. And Graham Norton showed his character that night. He showed it in every measured response, every attempt at understanding, every moment where he could have gotten angry but chose kindness instead. That's the real story. That's what people should take away from this. Not that a celebrity had a meltdown on live television, but that a good man remained good even when it would have been easier not to. The world needs more people like Graham Norton. People who treat others with respect, even when that respect isn't returned. People who stay calm under pressure. People who choose grace over grudges. So let this be a lesson to everyone watching. When you're given a platform, when you're invited onto someone's show or into someone's space, remember gratitude. Remember humility. Remember that the way you treat people, especially people who are just trying to do their jobs, says everything about who you are as a person. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, ask yourself, am I being fair? Am I being reasonable? Am I treating this person the way I would want to be treated? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Not your status, not your fame, not your titles, or your troubles. What matters is whether you're being a decent human being. Graham Norton was a decent human being that night. He was more than decent. He was exemplary. The same cannot be said for everyone in that studio, and that's the truth that no amount of spin or explanation can change.